Punchinello, Volume 2, No. 28, the 8th of October, 1870 ******* Conant's patent binders for Punchinello, to preserve the paper for binding, will be sent post-paid, on receipt of $1, by Punchinello Publishing Co., 83 Nassau Street, New York City. We will mail free a cover lettered and stamped, with new title page for binding first volume, on receipt of 50 cents, or the title page alone, free, on application to Punchinello Publishing Co., 83 Nassau Street. Harrison Bradford & Co.'s Steel Pens. These pens are of a finer quality, more durable, and cheaper than any other pen in the market. Special attention is called to the following grades, as being better suited for business purposes than any pen manufactured. The 50522 and the anti-corrosive. We recommend for bank and office use. D. Appleton & Co., sole agents for United States. Punchinello Volume 2. Number 28. Saturday, the 8th of October, 1870. Published by the Punchinello Publishing Company, 83 Nassau Street, New York. The Mystery of Mr. E. Drood, by Orpheus C. Kerr, continued in this number. See 15th page for extra premiums. Bound Volume Number 1. The first volume of Punchinello, ending with number 26, the 24th of September, 1870, bound in fine cloth, will be ready for delivery on the 1st of October, 1870. Price $2.50. Sent post-paid to any part of the United States on receipt of price. A copy of the paper for 1 year, from the 1st of October, number 27, and the bound volume, the latter prepaid, will be sent to any subscriber for $5.50. 3 copies for 1 year, and 3 bound volumes, with an extra copy of bound volume, to any person sending us 3 subscriptions for $16.50. 1 copy of paper for 1 year, with a fine chromo premium, for $4 single copies, mailed free. 10 back numbers can always be supplied, as the paper is electrotyped. Book canvassers will find this volume a very saleable book. Orders supplied at a very liberal discount. All remittances should be made in post office orders. Canvassers wanted for the paper, everywhere. Address: Punchinello Publishing Company, 83 Nassau St., NY P.O. Box No. 2783. Applications for advertising in Punchinello should be addressed to John Nickinson, room number 4, number 83 Nassau Street, NY. Foley's Gold Pens. The best and cheapest. 256 Broadway. To newsdealers. Punchinello's Monthly. The weekly numbers for August, bound in a handsome cover, is now ready. Price, 50 cents. The trade supplied by the American News Company, who are now prepared to receive orders. Foster and Avril steam, lithograph, and letterpress printers, embossers, engravers, and label manufacturers. Sketches and estimates furnished upon application. 23 Platt Street and 20-22 Gold Street, New York. P.O. Box 2845. Wevel and Hammer, Wood Engravers, 208 Broadway, New York. The only journal of its kind in America. The American Chemist, a monthly journal of theoretical, analytical and technical chemistry devoted especially to American interests. Edited by Chas. F. Chandler, Ph.D., and W. H. Chandler. The proprietors and publishers of the American Chemist, having purchased the subscription list and stock of the American reprint of the Chemical News, have decided to advance the interests of American chemical science by the publication of a journal which shall be a medium of communication for all practical, thinking, experimenting, and manufacturing scientific men throughout the country. The columns of the American Chemist are open for the reception of original articles from any part of the country, subject to approval of the editor. Letters of inquiry on any points of interest within the scope of the journal will receive prompt attention. The American Chemist is a journal of especial interest to schools and men of science, to colleges, apothecaries, druggists, physicians, assayers, dyers, photographers, manufacturers, and all concerned in scientific pursuits. Subscription, $5 per annum, in advance, 50 CTS. Per number. Specimen copies, 25 CTS. Address: William Baldwin & Co., Publishers and Proprietors. 434 Broome Street, New York. Bowling Green Savings Bank, 33 Broadway, New York. Open every day from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. Deposits of any sum, from 10 cents to $10,000 will be received. 6% interest, free of government tax. Interest on new deposits commences on the 1st of every month. Henry Smith, President. Reeves E. Selms, Secretary. Walter Roche, Edward Hogan, Vice Presidents. J. Nickinson begs to announce to the friends of Punchinello, residing in the country, that, for their convenience, he has made arrangements by which, on receipt of the price of any standard book published, the same will be forwarded, postage paid. Parties desiring catalogues of any of our publishing houses, can have the same forwarded by enclosing 2 stamps. Office of Punchinello Publishing Co., 83 Nassau Street. P.O. Box 2783. Geo. B. Boland, Draftsman and Designer, No. 160 Fulton Street, Room No. 11, New York. Pomeroy's Democrat will each week contain Pomeroy's Saturday night chapters, Pomeroy's social chat with friends, editorials on different topics, Terence McGrant letters, a splendid Masonic department, in short, everything that helps to make a first-class family newspaper, and the best advertising medium in the United States. Single subscription, $2.50. For sale by news dealers everywhere at 6 cents per copy. Office, 166 Nassau Street, New York. C.P. Sykes, Publisher. M. M. Pomeroy, Editor and Proprietor. entered, according to Act of Congress, in the year 1870, by the Punchinello Publishing Company, in the Clerk's Office of the District Court of the United States, for the Southern District of New York. The Mystery of Mr. E. Drood. An adaptation. By Orpheus C. Kerr. Chapter XXI. Bentham to the rescue. European travelers in this country, especially if one economical condition of their coming hither has not been the composition of works of imagination on America, sufficiently contemptuous to pay all the expenses of the trip, have, occasionally, and particularly if they have been invited to write for New York magazines, take professorships in native colleges, or lecture on the encouraging continental progress of scientific atheism before Boston audiences, such travelers, we say, convinced that they shall lose no money by it, but, on the contrary, rather sanguine of making a little thereby in the long run, have occasionally remarked, that, in the United States, women journeying alone are treated with a chivalric courtesy and deference not so habitually practiced in any other second-class new nation on the face of the earth. 1. What can be more true than this? A lady well stricken in years, and of adequate protraction of nose and rectilinear undeviation of figure, can travel alone from Maine to Florida with as perfect immunity from offensive masculine intrusion as though she were guarded by a regiment, while a somewhat younger girl, with curls and an innocent look, cannot appear unaccompanied by an escort in an American omnibus, car, ferryboat, or hotel, without appealing at once to the finest fatherly feelings of every manly middle-aged observer, whose wife is not watching him, and exciting as general a desire to make her trip socially delightful as though each gentlemanly eye seeking hers were indeed that of a tender sire. Thus, although Miss Potts's lonely stay in her hotel had been so brief, the mysterious American instinct of chivalry had discovered it very early on the first morning after her arrival, and she arose from her delicious sleep to find at least half a dozen written offers of hospitality from generous strangers, sticking under her door. Understanding that she was sojourning without natural protectors in a strange city, the thoughtful writers, who appeared to be chiefly Western men of implied immense fortunes, begged her, by the delicate name of Fair Unknown, to take comfort in the thought that they were stopping at the same hotel and would protect her from all harm with their lives. In proof of this unselfish disposition on their parts, several of them were respectively ready to take her to a circus matinee, or to drive in Central Park, on that very day, and her prompt acceptance of these signal evidences of a disinterested friendship for womanhood without a natural protector could not be more simply indicated to those who now freely offered such friendship, than by her dropping her fork twice at the public breakfast table, or sending the waiter back 3 times with the boiled eggs to have them cooked rightly. Flora had completed her chemical toilet, put all the bottles, jars, and small round boxes back into her satchel again, and sat down to a second reading of these gratifying intimations that a prepossessing female orphan is not necessarily without assiduous paternal guardianship at her command wherever there are Western fathers, when Mr. Dibble appeared, as he had promised, accompanied by Gospeller Simpson. Miss Carruthers was so excited by your sudden flight, Miss Potts said the latter, that she came at once to me and Oldy with your farewell note, and would not stop saying did you ever, until, to restrain my aggravated mother from fits, I promised to follow you to your guardians and ascertain what your goodbye note would have meant if it had actually been punctuated. Our reverend friend reached me about an hour ago, added Mr. Dibble, saying, that a farewell note without a comma, colon, semicolon, or period in it, and with every other word beginning with a capital, and underscored, was calculated to drive friends to distraction. I took the liberty of reminding him, my dear, that young girls from boarding school should hardly be expected to have advanced as far as English composition in their French and musical studies, and I also related to him what you had told me of Mr. Bumstead. And I don't know that, under the circumstances, you could do a better thing than you have done, continued the Gospeller. Mr. Bumstead, himself, explains your flight upon the supposition that you were possibly engaged with myself, my mother, Mr. Dibble, and the Pendragons, in killing poor Mr. Drood. Oh, oughtn't he to be ashamed of himself, when he knows that I never did kill any absurd creature, cried the flower pot, in earnest deprecation. And just think of darling Magnolia, too, with her poor, ridiculous brother. You're a lawyer, Mr. Dibble, and I should think you could get them a habeas corpus, or a divorce, or some other perfectly absurd thing about courts, that would make the judges tell the juries to bring them in not guilty. Fixing upon the lovely young reasoner a look expressive of his affectionate wonder at her inspired perception of legal possibilities, the old lawyer said, that the first thing in order was a meeting between herself and Miss Pendragon, which, as it could scarcely take place, all things considered, with propriety in the private room of that lady's brother, nor without publicity in his own office, or in a hotel, he hardly knew how to bring about. And here we have an example of that difference between novels and real life which has been illustrated more than once before in this conscientious American adaptation of what all our profoundly critical native journals pronounce the most elaborately artistic work of the grandest of English novelists. In an equivalent situation of real life, Mr. Dibble's quandary would not have been easily relieved, but, by the magic of artistic fiction, the particular kind of extemporized character absolutely necessary to help him and the novel continuously along was at that moment coming up the stairs of the hotel. At the critical instant, a servant knocked, to say, that there was a gentleman below, with a face as long me a room, sir, who axed me was there a man here av the name av Simpson, miss. It is John, it is Mr. Bumstead, shrieked Flora, hastening involuntarily towards a mirror, and just see how my dress is wrinkled. My name is Bentham, Jeremy Bentham, said a deep voice in the doorway, and there entered a gloomy figure, with smoky, light hair, a curiously long countenance, and black worsted gloves. Simpson, old Octavius, did you never see me before? If I am not greatly mistaken, returned the Gospeller, sternly. I saw you standing in the barroom of the hotel, just now, as we came up. Yes, sighed the stranger, I was there, waiting for a Western friend, when you passed in. and her sorrow, then, so changed me, that you do not know me. Alas! Alack! Woe's me! Bentham, you say, cried the ritualistic clergyman, with a start, and sudden change of countenance. Surely you're not the rollicking fellow student who saved my life at Yale. I am, sobbed the other, smiting his bosom. While studying theology, you'd gone to sleep in bed reading the Decameron. I, in the next room, suddenly smelt a smell of wood burning. Breaking into your apartment, I saw your candle fallen upon your pillow and your head on fire. Believing that, if neglected, the flames would spread to some vital part, I seized a water pitcher and dashed the contents upon you. Up you instantly sprang, with a theological expression on your lips, and engaged me in violent single combat. Madman, roared I, is it thus you treat one who has saved your life? Falling upon the floor, with a black eye, you at once consented to be reconciled, and, from that hour forth, we were both members of the same secret society. Leaping forward, the Reverend Octavius wrung both the black worsted gloves of Mr. Bentham, and introduced the latter to the old lawyer and his ward. He did indeed save all but my head from the conflagration, and extinguished that, even, before it was much charred, cried the grateful ritualist, with marked emotion. But, Jeremy, why this aspect of depression? Octavius, old friend, said Bentham, his hollow voice quivering, let no man boast himself upon the gaiety of his youth, and fondly dream, poor self-deceiver, that his maturity may be one of revelry. You know what I once was. Now I am conducting a first-class American comic paper. Commiseration, earnest and unaffected, appeared upon every countenance, and Mr. Dibble was the first to break the ensuing deep silence. If I am not mistaken, then, observed the good lawyer, quietly, the scene of your daily loss of spirits is in the same building with our young friend, Mr. Pendragon, whom you may know. I do know him, sir, and that his sister has lately come unto him. His room, by means of outside shutters, was once a refuge to me from the man. Here Mr. Bentham's face flamed with inconceivable hatred, who came to tell me just how an American first-class comic paper should be conducted. At what time does your rush of subscribers cease? As soon as I begin to charge anything for my paper. And the newsmen, who take it by the week, what is their usual time for swarming in your office? On the day appointed for the return of unsold copies. Then I have an idea, said Mr. Dibble. It appears to me, Mr. Bentham, that your office, besides being so near Mr. Pendragon's quarters, furnishes all the conditions for a perfectly private confidential interview between this young lady here, and her friend, Miss Pendragon. Mr. Simpson, if you approve, be kind enough to acquaint Mr. Bentham with Miss Potts's history, without mentioning names, and explain to him, also, why the lady's interview should take place in a spot whither that singular young man, Mr. Bumstead, would not be likely to prowl, if in town, in his inspection of umbrellas. The Gospeller hurriedly related the material points of Flora's history to his recovered friend, who moaned with all the more cheerful parts, and seemed to think that the serious ones might be worked up in comic misspelling for his paper. For there is nothing more humorous in human life, said he, gloomily, than the defective orthography of a fashionable young girl's education for the solemnity of matrimony. Finally, they all set off for the appointed place of retirement, upon nearing which Mr. Dibble volunteered to remain outside as a guard against any possible interruption. The Gospeller led the way up the dark stairs of the building, when they had gained it, and the flower pot, following, on Jeremy Bentham's arm, could not help glancing shyly up into the melancholy face of her escort, occasionally. "Do you never smile?" she could not help asking. "Yes," he said, mournfully, "sometimes, when I clean my teeth." No more was said, for they were entering the room of which the tone and atmosphere were those of a receiving vault. 1. Shades of Quintilian and Dr. Johnson, what a sentence! 2. Quite independently of any specific design to that end by the adapter, this adaptation, carefully following the original English narrative as it does, cannot avoid acting as a kind of practical, and, of course, somewhat exaggerative, commentary upon what is strained, forced, or out of the line of average probabilities, in the work adapted. Chapter XXII. A confused state of things. The principal office of the comic paper was one of those amazingly unsympathetic rooms in which the walls, windows and doors all have a stiff, unsalient aspect of the most hard-finished indifference to every emotion of humanity, and a perfectly rigid insensibility to the pleasures or pains of the tenants within their impassive shelter. In the whole configuration of the heartless, uncharacterized place there was not one gracious inequality to lean against, not a ledge to rest elbow upon, not a panel, not even a stovepipe hole, to become dearly familiar to the wistful eye, not so much as a genial crack in the plastering, or a companionable rattle in a casement, or a little human obstinacy in a door to base some kind of an acquaintance upon and make one less lonely. Through the grim, untwinkling windows, gaping sullenly the wrong way with iron shutters, came a discouraged light, strained through the narrow intervals of the dusty roofs above, to discover a large coffin-coloured desk surmounted by ghastly busts of Hervey, Keble and Blair winking sad smiley 3, a smaller desk, over which hung a picture of the tomb of Washington, and at which sat a pallid assistant editor in deep mourning, opening the comic contributions received by last mail, a still smaller desk, for the nominal writer of subscription wrappers, files of the Evangelist, Observer and Christian Union hanging along the wall, a dead carpet of churchyard green on the floor, and a print of Mr. Park Godwin just above the mantel of monumental marble. Upon finding themselves in this temple of Momus, and observing that its peculiar arrangement of sunshine made their complexions look as though they had been dead a few days, Gospeller Simpson and the flower pot involuntarily spoke in whispers behind their hands. "Does that room belong to your establishment, also, Bentham?" whispered the Gospeller, pointing rather fearfully, as he spoke, towards a side door leading apparently into an adjoining apartment. "Yes," was the low response. Is there anybody dead in there?" whispered Mr. Simpson, tremulously. "No, Not yet then, whispered the ritualistic clergyman. You might step in there, Miss Potts, and have your interview with Miss Pendragon, whom Mr. Bentham will, I am sure, cause to be summoned from upstairs. The assistant editor of the comic paper stealing softly from the office to call the other young lady down, Mr. Jeremy Bentham made a sign that Flora should follow him to the supplementary room indicated, his low-spirited manner being as though he had said, "If you wish to look at the body, miss, I will now show you the way." Leaving the Gospeller lost in dark abstraction near the black mantle, the flower pot allowed the sexton of the establishment to conduct her funereally into the place assigned for her interview, and stopped aghast before a huge black object standing therein. "What's this?" she gasped, almost hysterically. "Only a safe," said Mr. Bentham, with inexplicable bitterness of tone. "Merely our fire and burglar-proof receptacle for the money constantly pouring in from first-class American comic journalism." Here Mr. Bentham slapped his forehead passionately, checked something like a sob in his throat, and abruptly returned to the main office. Scarcely, however, had he closed the door of communication behind him, when another door, opening from the hall, was noiselessly unlatched, and Magnolia Pendragon glided into the arms of her friend. "Flora," murmured the southern girl, "I can scarcely credit my eyes. It seems so long since we last met." "You've been getting a new bonnet, I see." "It's like an absurd dream," responded the flower pot, wonderingly caressing her. "I've thought of you and your poor, ridiculous brother 20 times a day. How much you must have gone through here. Are they wearing skirts full, or scant, this season?" "About medium, dear." "But how do you happen to be here, in Mr. Bentham's office?" In answer to this question, Flora related all that bad happened at Bumsteadville and since her flight from thence, concluding by warning Magnolia that her possession of a black alpaca waist, slightly worn, had subjected her to the ominous suspicion of the ritualistic organist. "I scorn and defy the suspicions of that enemy of the persecuted South, and high-handed wooer of exclusively Northern women," exclaimed Miss Pendragon, vehemently. "Is this Mr. Bentham married?" "I suppose not." "Is he visiting anyone?" "I shouldn't think so, dear." Then added Magnolia, thoughtfully, "If dear Mr. Dibble approves, he might be a friend to Montgomery and myself, and, by being so near us, protect us both from Mr. Bumstead. Just think, dear Flora, what heaps of sorrow I should endure, if that base man's suspicion about my alpaca waist should be only a pretense, to frighten me into ultimately receiving his addresses." "I don't think there's any danger, love," said Miss Potts, rather sharply. "Why, Flora precious?" "Oh, because he's so absurdly fastidious, you know, about regularity of features in women. More than he is about brains, I should think, dear, from what you tell me of his making love to you." Here both young ladies trembled very much, and said they never would have believed it of each other, and were only reconciled when Flora sobbed that she was a poor unmarried orphan, and Miss Pendragon moaned piteously that an unwed Southern girl without money had better go away somewhere in the desert, with her crushed brother, and die at once for their downtrodden section. Then, indeed, they embraced tearfully, and, in proof of the perfect restoration of their devoted friendship, agreed never to marry if they could avoid it, and told each other the prices of all their best clothes. "You won't tell your brother that I've been here," said the flower pot. "I'm so absurdly afraid that he can't help blaming me for causing some of his trouble." "Can't I tell him, even if it would serve to amuse him in his desolation?" asked the sister, persuasively. "I want to see him smile again, just as he does some days when a hand organ man's monkey climbs up to our windows from the street." "Well, you may tell him, then, you absurd thing," returned Flora, blushing, and, with another embrace, they parted, and the deeply momentous interview was over. To be continued. 3. Author of The Grave. Romance and Reality. Office Seeking. 4. By Ishabod Boggs, the New American Poet. Prefatory note. The reader is requested to judge the following production mildly, as it is the first effort of a youthful genius, 16 years old in looks and feeling, 42 by the family Bible and census. The author has felt that America should have a new kind of verse of its own, and he thinks he here offers one which has never been used by any other mortal poet. It is called the duodecameter. Perhaps it may be proper to add that the following is poetry. You see, everybody in our town was running around, getting fat jobs and positions, and picking up $1 million or so. So I felt it incumbent on me to shake myself up, and see if there wasn't a good butter firkin, well filled, loafing around idle, in which could conveniently locate my center of gravity, and so I said to myself, I'll go to Washington and see, says Ishabod Boggs, says I too. Now, don't you see, you might just as well ask for a big position at first, and then take what you can get. At least that has been my rule so far, for, as I says to myself, if you can only get a very high position, with a sort of nabob's salary, and lots of perquisites running in annually, you needn't do anything, you bet, but puff at your cigar, says Ishabod Boggs. Says I. 3. So I put on my best clothes, and a sort of a big blue necktie, and shortly thereafter showed myself to Mr. Grant, and said that there had been quite enough of this giving away big offices to people who hadn't big reputations, and that he had other fish to fry, and that, as he wouldn't give the custom house to my son, I'd take it myself. And then I stopped, and he looked. I shan't, but all he said was, "Puff," says General Grant, says he. For then all the smoke got in my nose, and I sneezed and snorted a bit, and then I just simply remarked and said that he needn't go and get into a huff, and if he didn't like to give me that office, couldn't he make me minister to England, as I was a big feeder, or if that didn't suit, why, if he'd do it, I wouldn't object to being minister to Cuba, when the Cubans had been all killed, and were thoroughly dead. But all be said was, "Puff," says General Grant, says he. Well, then I got kind of discouraged, but I thought that I'd better try again, and not get up so far, but ask for what he'd give beyond doubt, so I asked for a position as night watchman at the Navy Yard, and thought I'd get it, and he'd answer my request, for I'd noticed that his Havana was gradually growing smaller, and he did answer me. Just as he'd thrown away the end of his cigar, he simply said, "Get out." Says General Grant, says he. 6. So I got out, as fast as a pair of legs, with a number 12 boot kicking at the place where they adjoined, would permit, and wandered off, just about as far as I conveniently could, and then I sat down on a milestone and raised my voice to heaven, and cried aloud, that, weather permitting, General Grant should never, 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 go back to the White House, not if I could help it. To puff on his cigar, said Ishabod Boggs, said I, for we hope none of our readers will labor under the impression that we look upon the above effusion as a poetical one, but, in this day of many isms, it may happen that the above style may become prevalent, and we think it our duty to present everything that is new. eds. 2.02 To harness. Mr. Punchinello on the turf. History relates that the era of horse racing commenced about the year 680 BC, but it was some time after that when Mr. Punchinello made his debut as a candidate for the honors of the turf. To put the matter more concisely, it is just 6 days since he drove his horse Creeping Peter on the track at Monmouth Park, Long Branch. The only object which Mr. P had in view, when he purchased his celebrated trotter and put him into training, was the improvement of the breed of American horses. While our Borners, Vanderbilts and Grants are devoting all their surplus time and means to this great end, Mr. P, in placing the name of his yellow horse in the hands of the pool seller, would scorn to have a less noble aim. But this great object need not interfere with others of less importance, and therefore Mr. P will not deny that, after having exhibited to his friends and the sporting fraternity in general, his little investment in fancy horse flesh, he made up a very satisfactory betting book. Now Mr. P believed, and events proved him to be correct, that when his friends and the sporting fraternity saw his horse, they would bet heavily against him. Mr. P, however, in all the pride of amateur ownership, bet quite as heavily upon his noble steed. His friends and the above-mentioned fraternity chuckled and winked behind his back, but although Mr. P heard them chuckle and knew that they were winking, his belief in his final success never wavered. Any ordinary observer might be expected to remark that Creeping Peter was not entirely without blemish. Besides being spavined and having 3 of his hoofs injured by sand crack, he had pole evil, fistulas, malanders, ringbone, capped hock, curb, splint, and several other maladies which made him a very suitable horse for the general public to bet against. But Mr. P.'s courage never quailed. When he made his appearance on the track, for he drove his horse himself, he was the object of general attention. The following view, from a photograph by Rockwood, gives an excellent idea of the horse and driver. Nearly everybody on the ground advised Mr. P to leave his cloth in the stable, for it would certainly interfere with the speed of his horse and probably get wrapped up in the wheels and cause an accident. but Mr. P would listen to nothing of the sort. He told everybody that he wasn't going to catch cold in his knees, even if he lost the race, and that he was perfectly willing to run the risk of accidents. For the benefit of his readers, however, Mr. P will lift up this heavily shotted lap cloth and show what was under it. Here is arranged a steam engine, which drives the wheels of the vehicle, and which will of course propel the whole turnout, horse and all, at a great rate of speed. It will now be easily perceived why Mr. P persisted in keeping his lap cloth over his knees. The entries were as follows, in the library. Jones, reading. The glass of fashion and the mold of form, the observed of all observers. Jenkins, with enthusiasm. Perfect description of my wife. In the garden. This is Mrs. Jenkins, in her morning toilette. Robert Borner's B.H. Dexter. Denosue's B.M. Lady Thorne. Punchinello's Y.H. Creeping Peter. When the word was given, the horses all got off well and Dexter immediately took the lead, buzzing through the air like a humming top, followed closely by Lady Thorne, her nose just lapping his off jaw. For the first few seconds Mr. P fell behind, owing to his fires not yet being properly underway, but the water soon bubbled merrily in his boiler, and his wheels began to revolve with great rapidity. And now he sped merrily. Never did the war trumpet inspire the fiery charger, or hounds and horn excite the mettled hunter, as the steam engine in his rear woke all the energies of Creeping Peter. Swift as revolving pinwheels or rapid peg-top, those spavins, those ring-bones, those bulbous hocks, those sand-cracked hoofs and those rattling ribs went whistling o'er the track. Mid the shouts and yells of the excited multitude he passed Lady Thorne, overtook Dexter and shot ahead of him. But he cannot stand that tremendous pace, and down goes Creeping Peter on his knees. Every man who had bet against him set up a howl of rapture, but Mr. P never relaxed a muscle, and on went Creeping Peter, just as fast as ever, his horny bones dashing away the sand and gravel like spray from the cutwater of a scudding yacht, and, amid the wildest clamor, he shot past the judge's stand on his nose and one leg, making his mile in 2 minutes and 2 seconds. It is needless to dwell upon the results of this race. Mr. P now owes no man anything, nor is he even indebted to his noble steed. Behold his testimony to the merits of that valuable animal. Something original in suicide. An item in an evening paper states that a man near Syracuse recently cut his throat with a scythe. Well, certainly this was a new mode of doing the business, although, as it was the first instance of the kind on record, it cannot properly be said that the business was done a la mode. Jocular and ocular. Can the public be properly said to have looked forward to Seabuck? Anna Dickinson. One bright October morning in the year 1828, a lone lorn woman by the name of Gummidge might have been seen standing at the corner of a wheat field where two crossroads met and embraced. She was weeping violently. Ever and anon she would raise her head and gaze mysteriously in the direction of a cloud of dust which moved slowly over the hill toward the town. Her name was Fatima. Fatima Gummidge. "Sister Annie," she cried, "what do you see?" But Sister Annie was far away. She was not there. She was attending an agricultural fair in the beautiful young state of Kansas. Thus gracefully do we introduce our heroine upon the scene. The reader will be able to judge, from this, whether we are familiar with the literature of our day, or not. He will be able to form a complimentary opinion of our culture. He will perceive that we are acquainted with the writings of Messrs. James, and Dickens, and Bluebeard. There is nothing like impressing your reader with an adequate sense of your ability for laborious research, when you are doing biography for a high-toned journal. At what period in her career our illustrious victim applied to the legislature to change her name from Gummidge to Dickinson, we are unable to discover. There is no record of the event in the musty tomes we have waded through at the Astor Library in search of reliable data. One thing must be apparent, even to the most violently prejudiced and brutish bigot, namely, that Miss Dickinson no longer confesses to the name of Gummidge. However disrespectful this may be to the memory of Mrs. Gummidge's father, but on reflection, is it not possible that Mrs. Gummidge's maiden name was Dickinson? There may be something in this. Let us see. Mrs. Gummidge was born of the brain of Mr. C. Dickens. Mr. Dickens may be said to be the father of the whole Gummidge family. This, of course, includes Gummidge Perrier. Gummidge Perrier was therefore Dickens' son. Hence the name of Dickinson. Very good, so far. Now, but it is unnecessary to press the argument. If the prejudiced bigot is not yet convinced, nothing would convince him short of a horsewhipping. The poet, when he wrote "Thou wilt come no more, gentle Annie," was clearly laboring under a mistake. If he had written "Thou wilt be sure to come again next season, gentle Annie," he would have hit it. Lecture committees know this. Miss Dickinson earns her living by lecturing. Occasionally she takes a turn at scrubbing pavements, or going to hear Wendell Phillips on the lost arts or other violent exertion, but her best hold is lecturing. She has followed the business ever since she was a girl, and 24 years of steady application have made her no longer a timid young thing. She is not afraid of audiences anymore. It is a favorite recreation of the moral bootblacks and pious newsboys of New York to gather in the evening on the steps of Mr. Frothingham's church, and scare each other with thrilling stories of the gentle Annie's fierce exploits and deeds of daring. Among the best authenticated of these, stripped of the ornate figures of speech with which the pious newsboys are wont to embellish the simple facts, are the following: one in the memorable canvass of 1848, Miss Dickinson stumped the mining districts of Pennsylvania for Fred Douglass, and was shot at by the infuriated miners 42 times. The bullets whistling through her back hair to that extent that her chignon looked like a section of suction hose when the campaign was over. Too near the close of the rebellion, Miss Dickinson wrote to Jeff Davis that she was going to raise a regiment and go for him. Peace followed promptly. In the year 1867 she published a book. 4. In the year 1868 she went to California overland, by railroad, alone. 5. In the year 1869 she attended a lecture by Olive Logan, and further showed her fearless nature by embracing Miss Logan tempestuously, and offering to marry her. 6. At various times during her career she has received and successfully done battle with 14,624 proposals of marriage, 14,600 of which were made to her in the city of Chicago. These evidences of her courage are sufficient to show what she is equal to, under any emergency. We are now waiting to hear of a 7th act of bravery on her part which will distance all the above. When she shall have announced that she is prepared to lecture on Charles Dickens, she will have given the last convincing proof that she is equal to anything terrible. Should Mr. Punchinello object that this biographical sketch is desultory and wandering, let him try, himself, to write the biography of a lady who is incessantly and frantically roaming from one end of the country to the other, and if he don't wonder it will be a wonder. Important announcement, as wanted. New York, the 1st of October, 1870. We, the undersigned, as representatives of the family of the decedent, hereby call upon all heirs of the late Richard Collier de Lyon, who may be residing in or near this locality, to meet at the Astor House, in New York, on the 15th of this present month of October, to take measures for the recovery of such portion of the estate of said Lyon as is known to have legally descended to his heirs in this country. This property, to which it will be easy to prove that we, the undersigned, together with the other members of our family, are the lineal heirs, is believed to consist mainly of the 200,000 bezants assured to the said Lyon by Saladin after the capitulation of Acre. This sum, which we have reason to believe was duly paid by said Saladin at the time appointed, when reduced from golden bezants into greenbacks, and compound interest at 7% for the term of 679 years calculated thereupon, will be found to amount to upwards of $170,000 million. When the ransom money of 2,500 Saracens, slain by said Lyon to enforce the speedy payment of the principal of this sum by the said Saladin, shall have been deducted and paid to such heirs and survivors of said Saracens as may immediately present their claims, the remainder will be divided, as soon as the necessary legal measures shall be taken, among the heirs and descendants of said Lyon in this country. The immediate object of the meeting, which is now called by the undersigned, is the collection of sufficient funds from said heirs and descendants to defray the expenses of a committee, composed of the undersigned, who shall be charged with the duty of visiting England, Normandy and Palestine, and obtaining such evidence and such copies of record in relation to this portion of the estate of the said Lyon, as shall make necessary a speedy and equitable division of paid property among the members of the family in this country. Lineal heirs who may not be able to attend this meeting in person will have their interests taken in charge by the undersigned, on the receipt of $25, which will be due from each heir as the primary installment on account of necessary expenses. Punctual attention to this notice is requested. Signed, Jacob Richards, Peter McCurdy, Ebenezer Lyons. James McLean, L.J. Allin, Henry Richardson, Reverend those. Dick E. Dick Doubt. Recognition of Nilsson. Not that we mean to patronize fair Swede, no, indeed. 'Tis homage, honest homage that we bring, for you can sing. Pray, do not think we build you any throne on skill alone, there's nothing regal in a music box, in simple vox. But when an ardent spirit warms the strain, when it is plain the artist feels the passion of the scene, she's then our queen. But, dear Christina, we should still declare the fates unfair, unless she lived as chastely as the rose, as Nilsson does. Still we hesitate, we will confess, for you'd not guess. We'd have her, that the likeness be complete, young, fair, and sweet. In fine, and now we'll tell you everything, if she can sing, and act, and feel, and look, and be like you, why, that will do. The young Democrats, encouraged by the old rat Dana, come to grief in trying to put out the Hoffman light. A new Pierian spring. The principal of the students' home at V.N.Y., advertising the advantages of his school, makes the following telling appeal, which we should think would be hard to resist by such as find study interfere with digestion. Come to V. Its mineral water strengthens the body, and its seminary the mind. The hope of eventually leaving those classic shades in such a state of twofold invigoration, should prove inspiring to the dyspeptic and studious. Whether this constant cramming of the mind and purging of the body be the true secret of longevity as well as of scholarship, we know not. We should judge, however, from the appearance and conversation of students in general, that a system directly the reverse of the above-mentioned process would be more certain of turning out the real article. Spare us. Nor only is everybody's attention directed towards Paris, but the English sparrows appear to be gradually worming themselves into public estimation. They have been picking away so vigorously, since they were brought over here, that some of them are now able to pick their way across Broadway, in the muddiest weather. In course of time, we suppose the worms will disappear, and then, when these poor birds have nothing else to pick, they will go out to picnics. Come, arouse then, friends of the sparrow. Fetch out your bread and your grain, and fear not that these little twitterers will ever overburden the city. A guard of honor. The latest and most important news from Spain is that Sickles has been furnished with a guard by the government. Some things are managed better in Spain than in this country. Sickles should have been placed under guard, here, many a year ago, to keep him out of mischief. Carpe diem. The following telegraphic item is a remarkable instance of the exactness with which news can be transmitted by the submarine cable. London, the 16th of September. Mr. Charles Reed, Member of Parliament for Hackney, today unveiled the monument to Alexander Defoe, at Bunhill Fields. The monument in practically one to Robinson Crusoe. With the triffing exception of calling Robinson Defoe Alexander Defoe, and that is a pardonable error, considering that Alexander Selkirk was the prototype of Daniel Crusoe, the above item is perfectly satisfactory. All the more so, if one pays attention to the date, and remembers that the 16th of September fell upon a Friday. By telegraph from various parts of the world. Special correspondence of Punchinello. Berlin, October 15. In a conversation with King William, yesterday, he said that he relied upon the growing taste in Hoboken for Bavarian beer to destroy the sympathy of the United States with the French Republic. Metz, October 12. While examining the fortifications today with Bismarck, I lent him my cigar holder, and he told me that Prussia would refuse to entertain any propositions tending to peace until the Schleswig-Holstein question was definitely settled. Strasbourg, October 14. Among the priceless volumes destroyed in the library here, was a full set of Abbott's Napoleon histories. They were all presentation copies from the author, with autograph inscriptions. The regret expressed at their destruction is deep felt and universal. Windsor, October 16. I came up today with Victoria from Balmoral. She was engaged during most of the trip in reading Horace Greeley's What I Know About Farming, with which she is much delighted. She said she thought the satire was finer than Swift's, and wondered the people did not insist upon Greeley's being governor. Rome, October 15. Talking this morning with the Pope, who took breakfast with me, His Holiness said he had accepted James Gordon Bennett's invitation to come to Washington Heights on a visit, and wanted to know whether I thought he would be expected to wear his tiara during meals. I told him that I thought it would not be obligatory. Dublin, October 16. The Irish Republic was today proclaimed at Cork, with George Francis Train as Emperor. The Fenians say they would prefer a constitutional monarchy. Paris, October 15. General Cluseret assured me today that though Minister Washburn speaks French better than a native, yet he has not entirely forgotten what little English he used to know, and further, that he is confident it is not that gentleman's intention to make himself dictator of France by a coup d'état. Long Branch, October 22. While smoking today with Grant, I asked him what he thought of the European complication, and he answered with a most expressive silence. Staying the march. Liberty. Halt. Hiram Green in Gotham. The venerable late Gusties sees the sights, under perplexing difficulties. The native-born Gothamite might have noticed, a short time since, a venerable-looking ex-statesman, dressed in a becoming suit of clothes and a slick-looking white hat. The aforesaid honest old man carried a blue cotton umbrella in one hand, and an Axminster carpet bag in the other. He had just arriven to the metropolis on a North River steamboat. The reader has probably guessed by this time, that the man in question was the subscriber. If he hasn't so surmised, I would inform him that it was just so. Arriving at a well-known tavern, where hash is provided for man and beast, I handed my carpet bag over the counter. The clerk at the office put on rather more airs than a revenue officer. In fact, he was so full of airs I got a violent cold standing in his presence. "Shan't I take that giant circus tent," said he, "pint into my umbrella, and lock it up in the safe?" I made no reply to this unmanly interrogatory, but strike in an attitude of pain, give him one of those gazes which Ben Butler allers makes tell, in trying criminal cases. I looked at that clerk cross-eyed, and it made him squirm. "I wasn't he blind, not much. That clerk wanted to steal that umbrella, to send to Horace Greeley, so the philosopher could keep the rainstorms of Tammany from spatterin' his white coat. I understood his little dodge and nipped it." "Snowball," said I, addressing a dark-skinned individual with a white apron, while I was seated at the dinner table, "what in the deuce makes all your dishes so small?" "Dem is for one pusson, sir," said he. "That is an individual butter dish, sir." "Dem is individual vegetable dishes, and that's an individual salt cellar, sir," said he, "pint into each piece of crockery." I was hungry, and the crockery was soon empty. Seeing a platter of ice cream down the table a ways, I got up onto my feet, and having a good long arm, reached for it. It was awful cold, and sot my stumps to achin'. I got one holler toothful of the stuff. "Snowball," said I, "look here." "Well, sir," he replied. "I've got my toothful of that cold puddin'," said I, "pint into the dish. Please bring me an individual toothpick, so I can dig it out." He vanished. I couldn't wait, so I undertook to dig it out with my fork. A man opposite me, who thought he'd play smart, sent word to the tavern keeper that I was swallering his forks. Up comes the tavern keeper, and catching hold of my coat collar, shaked me out in the middle of the dining room floor. "What in thunder are you about?" says I. "Old man," says he, "them forks cost $9 a dozen. How many have you swallowed?" "Not a gol-darned fork," hollered I as loud as I could scream. Getting onto my feet, I pulled off my coat and vest, and if I didn't make the fur fly, and give that tavern keeper the nicest little polishing off mortal man ever become acquainted with, then I don't understand the rudiments of the English prize ring. At Central Park, that highly cultivated forest, the sharpers tried to chisel me. Just as I approached the gate which leads into the park, a fancy-looking fellow with short hair and plaid breeches stopped me and says, "Uncle, you are fair." "You're a man of excellent judgment," I replied. "I think I am pretty good looking for a man of my years." "You don't understand me, sir," he again said. "Come down with your stamps." "My which?" said I, turning a little red in the face. "Your gate money," he replied, trying to shove me back. "We charge $1 for going in here." "You do you?" said I, waving my umbrella over his head threatening manner. "When our government resumes specie payment again, maybe I'll send you a silver dollar with a hole into it, and maybe I won't. It will depend a good deal on the potato crop." I was very much agitated. Pulling out my silver watch, I says, "My sweet scented plum bob, if you don't hist your buttes away from that gate in 2 seconds, I'll bust your biler with this air bunch of bones." And I tickled the end of his proboscis with my fist, as I gently rubbed it under his smeller. He saw he'd caught a tartar, in fact, a regular tartar emetic, and he slunk away rather sudden. I had sent too many of such skynamelinks to the clay banks when I was Justice of the Peace to allow 'em to fool me much. I visited Wood's Museum to see the wax figures and things. The statues of the 12 apostles attracted my attention. And this, said a ministerial long-faced looking man, with a white choker, is the Last Supper. What a sagacious eye has Peter got, how doubtful Thomas looks, Matthew is in deep thought, probably thinking of the times he was a fisherman. What a longin' look in that astute eye, said he, nudging me with his gold-headed cane. Yes, said I, he is probably longin' for that 'ere dish of ham and eggs, in the middle of the table. Look at Simon, he continued. See. His eye rests upon his right hand, which is closed beside him on the table. His lips are parted as if he was going to say, Simon says thumbs up, I quickly replied, interrupting him. I didn't he mean anything disrespectful to nobody, but that ere man flew into a violent rage. Can it be, that a soul so devoid of poetry lives in this age, said he. My venerable friend, I blush for you, yes, I blush for you, you are devoid of sentiment. Look here, Captain, said I, you may be a good preacher and all that sort of thing. Excuse me for saying it, you hain't he a beacher, scarcely. H. Ward suits me, he is chock full of sentiment, at the same time he can relish a jokey cal to the best of us. Mix a little sunshine with that gloomy-looking countenance of yours. Don't let people of the world think they must draw down their faces and collapse, because a man jokes about a lot of wax figures dressed up in sixpenny calico. Them's the kind of sentiment which ails me every time. Saying which I stalked contemptuously out of the wax figure department. I shall remain a few days in the big city, friend Punchinello, and if the citizens of New York insist on giving me a reception at the City Hall, I will submit to the sacrifice, especially if the vitals are well cooked. Yours on a scare up, Hiram Green, Esquire, late Justice of the Peace. The Census Enumerator's Plaint. The names that these newspapers call us are hardest of all to surmount. They say may a hole us. He claims that our count is no count. I never had any such trouble in registering voters down south. I set every nigger down double and put the whites down in the mouth. But here they're so very exacting they kick up a row, don't you know? Though under instructions we're acting in playing our figures for low. I try to play sharp in these matters, I dodge all the bricks and spittoons, curse that bulldog. He's torn to tatters the seat of my best pantaloons. A tailor refused me admission, and said he would shoot mit his gun, so I, out of sheer opposition, counted him and 8 others for one. While not in the habit of swearing, I can't but be slightly profane to hear these New Yorkers declaring their names have been taken in vain. The most appropriate kind of dish on which to serve up horse flesh a charger. Severe on Byron Bubs. Bubs. Does your sister Nettie ever talk about me? Little Rose. Oh, yes. I heard her tell Ma, yesterday, You had such a beautiful neck, so long that it would do to tie in a double bow knot. By George. Concluded. Lake George, NY, the 12th of September. Dear Punchinello, Sluka, continued the long-haired man in an absent-minded manner, was a corker. There is no mistake about that. Like the ghost at Booth's, he was a terror to the peaceful hamlet. He was always getting up shindies without the slightest provocation, and was evidently possessed of the unpleasant ambition, as well as ability, to whale the entire township in detachments of one. Things got to be so bad after a while that the bark was rubbed off every tree in town on account of the people incontinently shinning up them whenever Sluka came in sight. It was no unusual thing to see business entirely suspended for hours, while Sluka marched up and down the main street, whistling, with his hands in his pockets, and every soul in the place, from the minister down, roosting as high as they could get, 6 on a branch, sometimes. Matters went on in this way until one day a little incident occurred that somewhat discouraged this gentle youth. He had just returned from a discussion with a butcher, from the effects of which the latter now sleeps in the valley, when a party of his fellow townsmen entered the store in which he was loafing, and ordered a coil of half-inch rope from New York by the morning's train. It was the overland route that Sluka took for California, and when his aged mother heard that 3 eyes had been gouged out in one day in the Golden City, she wept tears of joy. Her fond heart told her that the perilous journey was over, and her darling boy was safe. After 10 years of a brilliant career he bethought him again of the place of his birth. His heart yearned for the gentle delights, the heavy-laden trees, of his boyhood's home. He said he must go. His friends said he must go, too. In fact, they had already appointed a select and vigilant committee to see him safely on his way. In some respects Sluka came back an altered man. The stamp of change was on his noble face, indeed it had been stamped on itself, until it looked like a wax doll under a hot stove. But he still retained his warlike spirit. There was not so much chance of indulging it now, however. The fire company had disbanded, and nearly everyone had grown rich enough to own a shotgun. There was only one chance left. He joined the Presbyterian choir. Not that he had much of a voice, though he used to play Coming Through the Rio the fiddle sometimes, until he got it going through him so much he couldn't draw a note. Nobody would have taken them if he had. Well, Sluka had a pretty warm time of it in the choir, and enjoyed himself very much, until they got a new organist who pitched everything in high C, which was this young man's strong lead. As the choir always sang in G, of course, there was a row the first Sunday, and it was generally understood that Sluka was going to fix Middlerib that night. When the evening service commenced, and the choir was about to begin, the congregation were startled by an ominous click in the gallery, and looking up, they beheld Sluka covering the organist's second shirt stud with his revolver. "Give us G, Mr. Middlerib, if you please," he said blandly. But the pirate on the high CS refused to G, and woe was the natural result. The confusion that followed was terrible. Sluka fired at everybody. Middlerib hit him with the music stool. The soprano was thrown over the railing, and somebody turned off the gas. In the ensuing darkness everyone skirmished for themselves. Sluka took off his boots and hunted for Middlerib in his stocking feet. Suddenly he heard a single note on the high C. He groped his way to the keyboard, but there was no one there. The solution rushed upon him: Middlerib must be in the organ. He crept round to the handle and bore his weight on it. It was too true. The unhappy wretch had cut a hole in the bellows and crawled in. But for his ruling passion he would have escaped. There were a few muffled groans as the handle slowly descended upon the doomed man, and as the breath rushed out of his body into his favorite pipe, the wild high sea of agony that ran through the sacred edifice told them that all was over. Let us draw a veil over the horrid picture. Asterisk 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 asterisk. I was very much interested in this story, very much indeed, and so I jostled the long-haired man, who was about falling asleep, and asked him if anything was done to this wicked Sluka. He looked at me reproachfully. "What's the matter with you, my friend?" he said, in the same melancholy voice. "Don't you know who I am? I write for the Ledger, and whenever I draw a veil, etc. that ends it, that does." As we stepped from the steamer to the landing, I observed a youth of about 6 summers dressed in the most elaborately agonizing manner. He had 2 Schutzen-Fest targets in his cuffs. In one hand he held an enormous cane, in the other a cigar, and through an eyeglass he gazed at the ankles on the gangplank with an air of patient weariness with this slow old world that was very touching. Where, I exclaimed as I surveyed this show card of a fast generation, oh! Where have our children vanished? Take from childhood the sparkling water of its purity, the sugar of its innocent affections, its ardent but refreshing spirits, and what have we left? Nothing, said the melancholy voice at my elbow. Absolutely nothing save the mint and the straw. And he was right, my dear Punchinello, he was right. Siginor Dodd. Solemn silence. Perhaps very few persons, and especially very few members of the Republican Party, are aware that a monument to Abraham Lincoln has at last been completed, and that it has been placed on the site allotted for it in Union Square. It is very creditable to the Republican Party that they exercised such control over their feelings when the day for unveiling the Lincoln Monument arrived. Some parties might have made a demonstration on the occasion of post-mortuary honors being accorded to a leader whom they professed to worship while he lived, and whom they demideified after his death. No such extravagant folly can be laid at the door of the Republican Party. Let bygones be bygones is their motto. They allowed their sham Abraham in heroic bronze, to be hoisted onto his pedestal in Union Square in solitude and silence. That was commendable. A live ass is better than a dead lion, and so the Republican Party, who consider themselves very much alive, went to look after their daily thistles and left their dead lion in charge of a policeman. The plays and shows. Otter is lithe, which is alliterative, pretty, piquant, and addicted to the banjo. The latter characteristic is inseparable from her. In whatever situation the dramatist may place her, whether in a London drawing room or a Cockney kitchen, whether on an Algerian battlefield or in a California mining camp, she is certain to produce the inevitable banjo, and to sing the irrepressible comic song. In fact, her plays are written not for Lotta, but for Lotta's banjo. The dramatist takes the presence of the banjo as the central fact of his drama, and weaves his plot around it. His play is made on the model of that celebrated drama written to introduce Mr. Crumnels as Pump and Tubbs. Thus does he preserve the sacred unity of Lotta and the banjo. Heartsease, in which she is now playing at Niblo's garden, is plainly born of the banjo, and lives for that melodious instrument alone. The author said to himself, a California mining camp would be a nice place for a banjo solo. Wherefore he conceived the camp, with a chorus of red-shirted miners. Wherefore too, he created a comic Yankee who should be eccentric enough to bring a banjo to the camp, and a lover who should be charmed by its touching strains. It required a prologue and 3 acts to enable him to successfully introduce the banjo. In a somewhat condensed form, these acts and this prologue are here set forth. Prologue. A seedy husband who is audaciously palmed upon the public as a reasoning animal is discovered in a London garret, with a healthy-looking wife, in a rapid consumption. Reasoning animal. I loved you, my dear, and therefore brought you from a comfortable home to this dreary garret. I cannot bear to leave you, so I will go out for a walk. The bell rings, and the wife's mother, brother and family physician enter. Mother. You must leave your husband and come home and live with us. Brother. Of course you must. You need not hesitate about a little thing like that. Go into the other room and consult the doctor. Here comes your husband. Re-enter reasoning animal. Reasoning animal. Her brother. Her brother, yes. You can't support your wife. The doctor says she needs nice parties and other necessaries of life. Give her to us, and go to California. Reasoning animal. I will. Bring her here till I embrace her. She is brought. Farewell, my dear. I will go and make my fortune. Wife. Take our little girl with you. Reasoning animal. I will, for she needs a mother's care. Goodbye. Leave me to weep and wash the baby's face and hands alone. Act I. Scene, a California mining camp. Various miners of assorted nationalities, one of each, hard at work lying on the ground. One St. miner. I want more whiskey. Chorus. So do we. 2 Nd minor. May Wildrose won't sell any more. Chorus. But she gives it to her lover. 3 Road minor. He looks clean, he must have found a nugget. Let's kill him. 4 Th minor. Sure, we will. Enter May Wildrose, which her name it is Miss Lotta. May. Here comes my darling Lionel. Let me get you some brandy, love. Lionel. Certainly, my dear. How full of forethought is a true woman's love. Chorus of miners. She gives it to him, but not to us. Beware, young woman, or we will go back on you. May. No, you won't. My father earns a laborious living by making me keep a whiskey shop. We have a monopoly of the business, and you will have to buy of us, whether you like it or not. Get out of my sight, or I'll lick the whole boiling of you. They fly, and she returns to the parental whiskey shop. Lionel. Night is coming on. I will go among the rocks, why, I don't know, but still I will go. Goes. 3 miners follow and attack him. Lionel. Save me, somebody. May. Appearing suddenly with a revolver, you bet. She shoots the miners and brings down the curtain triumphantly. Act 2. Scene. The whiskey shop of the reasoning animal. Lionel asleep on a bed evidently borrowed from some boarding house, since it is several feet too short for him. May engaged in peeling potatoes. Enter reasoning animal. Reasoning animal. My daughter. I see you are passionately in love with Lionel. Therefore, as I know him to be a fine young fellow, you must never see him more. Enter Comic Yankee. Comic Yankee. Here's your new banjo, Miss May. Play us something comic and depressing. May. Thank heaven, I can get at the banjo at last. Plays and is encored a dozen times. Comic Yankee. Miss May, you must go and take a walk. She goes. Lionel, you are well enough to leave this ranch. Get up and get. Lionel. Farewell, beloved whiskey shop. Tell May I am going to leave her, and give her my sketches. If she once looks at them, she can love me no longer. Goes out to slow music. Re-enter May. May. The wretch has left me without a word. I will bury his infamous sketches under the floor. They may frighten away the rats. Pulls up the floor and finds an immense nugget. Her father rushes in to see it. 2 miners also see it and try to raise it. They are promptly seen and called by May, who shoots one and holds the pistol pointed at the other, while the curtain slowly falls. Act 3. Scene, a London drawing room. Enter May, gorgeously dressed. Also her father, who has forgotten all about his wife, and also Lionel and the Comic Yankee. Comic Yankee. Let us sing. May. Come on, old hose. They sing and dance for an hour, such being the pleasant custom of fashionable London society. May. Miss Clara. I understand you are engaged to marry Lionel, and that if you marry anybody else you lose your dower of £20,000. Sell Lionel to me, and I will give you a check for the amount. Clara. Thanks, noble stranger, there is the receipt. Hand over the money. Lionel. Dearest May, as you must have a pretty large bank account, to be able to draw checks for £20,000, I am quite sure I love you. May. Come to my arms. Now then, everybody, how is that for high? Slow curtain, relieved by eccentric gymnastics by the comic Yankee. Boy in the audience. Pa. Isn't that splendid? Discriminating parent. What? How? Who? Where am I? Oh, to be sure, I came to see Heartsease, and to take my evening nap. Did Lotta play the banjo? Boy. Oh, didn't she just? She played and sung dead loads of times. Discriminating parent. I have had a sweet nap. My son, I think I can now risk taking you to the minstrels. If I slept through this, I could feel reasonably sure of sleeping through even the dark conundrums and sentimental colored ballads. There is only a shade of difference between the two styles of performance, and that slight shade is only burnt cork. Matador. Mural decorations in Rome. The dead walls of Rome, as we learn from the telegrams, were lately placarded with immense posters proclaiming the Italian Republic. Rome being an eternal city, we were not previously aware that any of her walls were dead. If they are, however, it may be that the posters of the posters referred to took that method of bringing them to life again, which may be looked on as a post-mortem proceeding. The retort courteous. Newly arrived Briton. English sparrows, impossible. Why, they chirp through their little noses like regular Yankees. Park keeper. Well, I don't know, but it takes 2 men and a cart every day to remove the H's dropped by them about the park. Our portfolio. Paris, first week of the Republic, 1870. Dear Punchinello, things are becoming so mixed here that I am thinking of retiring to tours with the other tourists. The city is all on the go, that is to say, the non-combatants are all going out of it as fast as possible. Gamita left here the early part of the week, and it was better for him that he should. I wouldn't give a sou for any of these Republicans if they chanced to fall into the clutches of King William. It is reported that he has issued an order for the strangulation of all French children between the ages of 3 and 5, in reprisal for the treacherous blowing up of Germans at Laon. Bismarck has requested the privilege of cooking Rochefort's mutton for him, should he be taken alive when Paris falls. What he means by cooking his mutton has not yet transpired, but it is gloomily vaticinated that he intends to boil him down. Rochefort mutton with caper sauce ought to satisfy the Epicurean taste of Bismarck, especially as Rochefort would cease his caperings from that hour. Late last night there was an alarm in the city that the whole Prussian army was at Noisy-le-Sec, as you may have suspected. A noisy demonstration followed this announcement. I got out of bed, rang the bell, and requested the concierge to bring me an auger. The man looked a little astonished at what he undoubtedly considered a strange request. For a man to get out of bed in the middle of the night and call for an auger, was indeed a trifle peculiar. When he brought it, I increased his astonishment by proceeding to bore a hole through the top of my trunk. "Say you an imbecile," said the concierge, retreating a step or two. "Not much," I retorted, boring away with renewed vigor. Presently the orifice was made. Into it I thrust an alpenstock which had accompanied me in many a toilsome march through Switzerland, and lifting the lid, took from the cradle of the trunk a star-spangled banner made of silk, which had been presented to me by the Young Men's Christian Association of New York, prior to my departure for Europe, as a token of their esteem for my services in the capacity of a reformed drunkard. I fastened the flag to the stock, put my boots, clothes and other valuables on top of the trunk, and in a voice intended to express my defiance of King William and his German loggerheads, spoke these words: "Wave fearless, there, thou standard sheet! That Yankee trunk and all it holds, though Prussian hirelings throng each street, is safe beneath thy starry folds." Saying which I dismissed the humiliated concierge, took a drink, blew out the bougie, and sank into the arms of tired nature's sweet restorer. Instances like the above are quite common among Americans in Paris. It was only the other day at the depot of the Chemin de Fer du Nord that I saw a sick Bostonian sitting on his trunk outside the gates, waiting for a chance to get into the train, with a Skye Terrier between his legs wrapped in the American flag. You easily get accustomed to such sights, and don't think anything about them. Yesterday I called at the office of the American minister. I gave the porter my card, and asked if Wash was in. He eyed me strangely. Most people when they first see me generally do. I have thought sometimes that a certificate of good character posted conspicuously about my person would obviate this, but as they say here, en import. "I'll see," said the porter, in reply to my question. He walked off, taking with him the doormat, an umbrella that stood in the hall, 4 coats and 3 hats that hung on the rack, besides numerous other small portable articles of virtu that would have come handy for a professional lifter. I did not consider this movement a reflection upon my character, for it seemed but appropriate that he should do it. What, said I to myself, are porters for, but to remove portable articles? Wash was in, and fortunately for me, too, as I obtained a bit of news that has not yet been printed in the cable dispatches from private sources. It came by letter from General Forsyth, Sheridan's aide-de-camp and Lord High Chamberlain, and was to the effect that Sheridan had not tasted a drop of whiskey or uttered an oath since landing in Germany. Wash asked me to communicate the fact to you with the request that you would forward it to the Society for the Encouragement of Practical Piety at Boston. He also told me that, between looking after German interests in Paris and receiving ovations from enthusiastic mobs, he didn't think he could do justice to his salary. Wash, says I, it isn't so much that, as it is that the salary doesn't do justice to you. If that's the case, speak right out. Punchinello can fix it for you. This took Wash so suddenly that he couldn't speak, but his eyes were running over with language. Don't move in the matter, however, till you hear from me again, when I shall have something more to tell you about the march of the Prussians to this capital, and the capital march I propose to make out of it. Yours, in a revolutionary state, Dick Tinto. New publications. Monsieur Sylvestre. By George Sand. Boston, Roberts Brothers. A welcome version of one of Madame Dudevant's novels, well rendered into English by Mr. F. G. Shaw. It is issued in very neat and attractive form, and is one of a series of the Sand novels, publishing by Messrs. Roberts, A.T. Stewart and Company, are offering a splendid collection of new silks, the largest they have ever offered, black and white check silks, $1 per yard. Colored ray gross grains, $L per yard. Extra heavy ray gross grains, 4 suits, $1.25 per yard. A very large collection of new canal stripes, for young ladies, $1.50 per yard. 2 cases grisaille stripes, excellent qualities, $1.25 per yard. Extraordinary bargains in rich wide fancy silks, only $2 per yard, formerly $4 and $5 per yard. A choice assortment of very rich ground pompadour brocades. Also, hand-embroidered silks. Very beautiful. 500 pieces plain and colored silks, comprising all the newest shades, from $2.60 per yard. Several cases of the celebrated American black silks, at $2 per yard. Guaranteed to wash and wear well. An immense stock of black silks, of bonnets and Ponson's manufacture. Also, the A.T.S. and Company family silk, from $2 per yard and upward. Broadway, 4th Avenue, 9th and 10th Streets. Punchinello. The first number of this illustrated humorous and satirical weekly paper was issued under date of the 2nd of April, 1870. The press and the public in every state and territory of the Union endorse it as the best paper of the kind ever published in America. Contents entirely original. Subscription for 1 year, with $2 premium, $4 6 months, without premium. 2.003 months. 1.00 single copies mailed free, for 10 we offer the following elegant premiums of L. Prang and Company's chromos for subscriptions as follows: a copy of paper for 1 year, and The Awakening, a litter of puppies. Half chromo. Size 8-3/8 by 11-1/8, $2 picture, $4 a copy of paper for 1 year and either of the following $3 chromos, Wild Roses. 12-1/8x9. Dead Game. 11-1/8x8-3/8. Easter Morning. 6-3/4x10-1/4, $5 a copy of paper for 1 year and either of the following $5 chromos, Group of Chickens, Group of Ducklings, Group of Quails. Each 10x12-1/8. The Poultry Yard. 10-1/8x14. The Barefoot Boy, wild fruit. Each 9-3/4x13. Pointer and quail, spaniel and woodcock. 10x12, 4, $6.50 a copy of paper for 1 year and either of the following $6 chromos: The Baby in Trouble, The Unconscious Sleeper, The Two Friends. Dog and Child. Each 13x16-1/4. Spring, Summer, Autumn, 12-7/8x16-1/8. The Kids Playground. 11x17-1/2, 4, $7 a copy of paper for 1 year and either of the following $7.50 chromos: Strawberries and baskets. Cherries and baskets. Currants. Each 13x18. Horses in a Storm. 22-1/4x15-1/4. 6 Central Park Views. A set. 9-1/8x4-1/2, 4, $8 a copy of paper for 1 year and 6 American landscapes. A set. 4-3/8x9, price $9.00, 4, $9 a copy of paper for 1 year and either of the following $10 chromos: Sunset in California. Bierstadt, 18-1/2x12 Easter morning. 14x21. Correggio's Magdalene. 12-1/4x16-3/8. Summer fruit and autumn fruit. Half chromos, 15-1/2x10-1/2. Companions, price $10 for the two. For $10 remittances should be made in PO orders, drafts, or bank checks on New York, or registered letters. The paper will be sent from the first number, April 2d, 1870, when not otherwise ordered. Postage of paper is payable at the office where received, 20 cents per year, or 5 cents per quarter, in advance. The chromos will be mailed free on receipt of money. Canvassers wanted, to whom liberal commissions will be given. For special terms address the company. The first 10 numbers will be sent to anyone desirous of seeing the paper before subscribing, for 60 cents. A specimen copy sent to anyone desirous of canvassing or getting up a club, on receipt of postage stamp. Address: Punchinello Publishing Co., P.O. Box 2783. Number 83 Nassau Street, New York. A T. Stewart and Company have made large additions to their stock of 5-frame English Brussels, $1.75 per yard. English Brussels, confined styles, $2 per yard. Very best quality English tapestry Brussels, $1.30 per yard. French moquettes and Axminsters, $3.50 and $4 per yard. Royal Wiltons, best quality, $2.60 and $3 per yard. Crossleys Velvets, choice designs, $2.50 per yard. And they are receiving by each and every steamer, novelties, as they appear. Superfin in grains, 3 plies. English and domestic oilcloths, rugs, mats, etc., at reduced prices. Broadway, 4th Ave, 9th and 10th streets. Butcher, ha. I should like to catch the dog that played me that air trick, I'd bulletin him. The Printing House of the United States and the United States Envelope Manufactory. George F. Nesbitt & Co. 163, 165, 167, 169 Pearl Street and 73,75,77,79 Pine Street, New York. Execute all kinds of printing, furnish all kinds of stationery, make all kinds of blank books, execute the finest styles of lithography, make the best and cheapest envelopes ever offered to the public. They have made all the prepaid envelopes for the United States Post Office Department for the past 16 years, and have invariably been the lowest bidders. Their machinery is the most complete, rapid and economical known in the trade. Travelers west and southwest should bear in mind that the ERIE Railway is by far the cheapest, quickest, and most comfortable route, making direct and sure connection at Cincinnati, with all lines by rail or river for New Orleans, Louisville, Memphis, St. Louis, Vicksburg, Nashville, Mobile and all points south and southwest. Its drawings room and sleeping coaches on all express trains, running through to Cincinnati without chance, are the most elegant and spacious used upon any road in this country, being fitted up in the most elaborate manner, and having every modern improvement introduced for the comfort of its patrons, running upon the broad gauge, revealing scenery along the line unequaled upon this continent, and rendering a trip over the ERIE one of the delights and pleasures of this life not to be forgotten. By applying at the offices of the Erie Railway Company, numbers 241, 529 and 957 Broadway, 205 Chambers Street, 38 Greenwich Street, Cor. 125th St. and 3rd Avenue Harlem, 338 Fulton Street Brooklyn, depots foot of Chambers Street, and foot of 23D Street, New York, and the agents at the principal hotels, travelers can obtain just the ticket they desire, as well as all the necessary information. Prang's latest publications, Joy of Autumn Prairie Flowers Lake George West Point. Prang's chromos sold in all art stores throughout the world. Prang's illustrated catalog sent free on receipt of stamp. L. Prang & Co., Boston. Punchinello. With a large and varied experience in the management and publication of a paper of the class herewith submitted, and with the still more positive advantage of an ample capital to justify the undertaking, the Punchinello Publishing Co. of the City of New York presents to the public for approval the new illustrated humorous and satirical weekly paper, Punchinello, the first number of which was issued under date of April 2. Original articles, suitable for the paper, and original designs, or suggestive ideas or sketches for illustrations, upon the topics of the day, are always acceptable and will be paid for liberally. Rejected communications cannot be returned, unless postage stamps are enclosed. Terms: 1 copy per year, in advance, $4 single copies. 10 a.m. specimen copy will be mailed free upon the receipt of 10 cents. 1 copy, with the Riverside magazine, or any other magazine or paper, price, $2.50, for 5.501 copy, with any magazine or paper, price, $4, for 7.00 all communications, remittances, etc., to be addressed to Punchinello Publishing Co., No. 83 Nassau Street P.O. Box, 2783, New York. Harper's Periodicals. The periodicals which the Harpers publish are almost ideally well edited. The Nation, NY Harper's Weekly. The best and most interesting illustrated newspaper. NY Sunday Harper's Bazaar. A repository of fashion, pleasure, and instruction. The young lady who buys a single number of Harper's Bazaar is made subscriber for life. NY Evening Post. Harper's Magazine. The most popular monthly in the world. NY Observer. The best monthly periodical, not in this country alone, but in the English language. The Press, Filer. Terms for Harper's Magazine, Weekly, and Bazaar. Harper's Magazine, 1 year $4 Harper's Weekly, 1 year $4 Harper's Bazaar, 1 year $4 Harper's Magazine, Harper's Weekly, and Harper's Bazaar, to one address, for 1 year, $10, or any two for $7, address, Harper and Brothers, New York. Geo. W. Wheat & Co., Printer, No. 8 Spruce Street. Asterisk 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 end of the Project Gutenberg ebook Punchinello, Volume 2, No. 28, the 8th of October, 1870 asterisk 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 updated editions will replace the previous one, the old editions will be renamed. Creating the works from print editions not protected by U.S. copyright law means that no one owns a United States copyright in these works, so the Foundation, and you, can copy and distribute it in the United States without permission and without paying copyright royalties. Special rules, set forth in the general terms of use part of this license, apply to copying and distributing Project Gutenberg trademark symbol electronic works to protect the Project Gutenberg trademark symbol concept and trademark. Project Gutenberg is a registered trademark, and may not be used if you charge for an ebook, except by following the terms of the trademark license, including paying royalties for use of the Project Gutenberg trademark. If you do not charge anything for copies of this ebook, complying with the trademark license is very easy. You may use this ebook for nearly any purpose such as creation of derivative works, reports, performances and research. Project Gutenberg ebooks may be modified and printed and given away. You may do practically anything in the United States with ebooks not protected by U.S. copyright law. Redistribution is subject to the trademark license, especially commercial redistribution. Start. Full license. The full Project Gutenberg license. Please read this before you distribute or use this work to protect the Project Gutenberg trademark symbol mission of promoting the free distribution of electronic works. By using or distributing this work, or any other work associated in any way with the phrase Project Gutenberg, you agree to comply with all the terms of the full Project Gutenberg trademark symbol license available with this file or online at www.gutenberg.org/license. Section 1. General Terms of Use and Redistributing Project Gutenberg Trademark Symbol Electronic Works 1.0. By reading or using any part of this Project Gutenberg trademark symbol electronic work, you indicate that you have read, understand, agree to and accept all the terms of this license and intellectual property, trademark/copyright, agreement. If you do not agree to abide by all the terms of this agreement, you must cease using and return or destroy all copies of Project Gutenberg trademark symbol electronic works in your possession. If you paid a fee for obtaining a copy of or access to a Project Gutenberg trademark symbol electronic work and you do not agree to be bound by the terms of this agreement, you may obtain a refund from the person or entity to whom you paid the fee as set forth in paragraph 1.e.8. 1.b Project Gutenberg is a registered trademark. It may only be used on or associated in any way with an electronic work by people who agree to be bound by the terms of this agreement. There are a few things that you can do with most Project Gutenberg trademark symbol electronic works even without complying with the full terms of this agreement. See paragraph 1.c below. There are a lot of things you can do with Project Gutenberg trademark symbol electronic works if you follow the terms of this agreement and help preserve free future access to Project Gutenberg trademark symbol electronic works. See paragraph 1.e below. 1.c. The Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation, the Foundation or PGLAF, owns a compilation copyright in the collection of Project Gutenberg trademark symbol electronic works. Nearly all the individual works in the collection are in the public domain in the United States. If an individual work is unprotected by copyright law in the United States and you are located in the United States, we do not claim a right to prevent you from copying, distributing, performing, displaying or creating derivative works based on the work as long as all references to Project Gutenberg are removed. Of course, we hope that you will support the Project Gutenberg trademark symbol mission of promoting free access to electronic works by freely sharing Project Gutenberg trademark symbol works in compliance with the terms of this agreement for keeping the Project Gutenberg trademark symbol name associated with the work. You can easily comply with the terms of this agreement by keeping this work in the same format with its attached full Project Gutenberg trademark symbol license when you share it without charge with others. 1.d. The copyright laws of the place where you are located also govern what you can do with this work. Copyright laws in most countries are in a constant state of change. If you are outside the United States, Check the laws of your country in addition to the terms of this agreement before downloading, copying, displaying, performing, distributing or creating derivative works based on this work or any other Project Gutenberg trademark symbol work. The Foundation makes no representations concerning the copyright status of any work in any country other than the United States. 1.e Unless you have removed all references to Project Gutenberg, 1.e.1. The following sentence, with active links to, or other immediate access to, the full Project Gutenberg trademark symbol license must appear prominently whenever any copy of a Project Gutenberg trademark symbol work, any work on which the phrase Project Gutenberg appears, or with which the phrase Project Gutenberg is associated, is accessed, displayed, performed, viewed, copied or distributed. This ebook is for the use of anyone anywhere in the United States and most other parts of the world at no cost and with almost no restrictions whatsoever. You may copy it, give it away or reuse it under the terms of the Project Gutenberg license included with this ebook or online at www.gutenberg.org. If you are not located in the United States, you will have to check the laws of the country where you are located before using this ebook. 1.e.2. If an individual Project Gutenberg trademark symbol electronic work is derived from texts not protected by U.S. copyright law, does not contain a notice indicating that it is posted with permission of the copyright holder, the work can be copied and distributed to anyone in the United States without paying any fees or charges. If you are redistributing or providing access to a work with the phrase Project Gutenberg associated with or appearing on the work, you must comply either with the requirements of paragraphs 1.e.1 through 1.e.7 or obtain permission for the use of the work and the Project Gutenberg trademark symbol trademark as set forth in paragraphs 1.e.8 or 1.e.9. 1.e.3. If an individual Project Gutenberg trademark symbol electronic work is posted with the permission of the copyright holder, your use and distribution must comply with both paragraphs 1.e.1 through 1.e.7 and any additional terms imposed by the copyright holder. Additional terms will be linked to the Project Gutenberg trademark symbol license for all works posted with the permission of the copyright holder found at the beginning of this work. 1.e.4. Do not unlink or detach or remove the full Project Gutenberg trademark symbol license terms from this work, or any files containing a part of this work or any other work associated with Project Gutenberg trademark symbol. 1.e.5. Do not copy, display, perform, distribute or redistribute this electronic work, or any part of this electronic work, without prominently displaying the sentence set forth in paragraph 1.e.1 with active links or immediate access to the full terms of the Project Gutenberg trademark symbol license. 1.e.6. You may convert to and distribute this work in any binary, compressed, marked up, non-proprietary or proprietary form, including any word processing or hypertext form. However, If you provide access to or distribute copies of a Project Gutenberg trademark symbol work in a format other than plain vanilla ASCII or other format used in the official version posted on the official Project Gutenberg trademark symbol website, www.gutenberg.org, you must, at no additional cost, fee or expense to the user, provide a copy, a means of exporting a copy, or a means of obtaining a copy upon request, of the work in its original plain vanilla ASCII or other form. Any alternate format must include the full Project Gutenberg trademark symbol license as specified in paragraph 1.e.1. 1.e.7. Do not charge a fee for access to, viewing, displaying, performing, copying or distributing any Project Gutenberg trademark symbol works unless you comply with paragraph 1.e.8 or 1.e.9. 1.e.8. You may charge a reasonable fee for copies of or providing access to or distributing Project Gutenberg trademark symbol electronic works provided that you pay a royalty fee of 20% of the gross profits you derive from the use of Project Gutenberg trademark symbol works calculated using the method you already use to calculate your applicable taxes. The fee is owed to the owner of the Project Gutenberg trademark symbol trademark, but he has agreed to donate royalties under this paragraph to the Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation. Royalty payments must be paid within 60 days following each date on which you prepare, or are legally required to prepare, your periodic tax returns. Royalty payments should be clearly marked as such and sent to the Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation at the address specified in Section 4, Information about donations to the Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation. You provide a full refund of any money paid by a user who notifies you in writing, or by email, within 30 days of receipt that he does not agree to the terms of the full Project Gutenberg trademark symbol license. You must require such a user to return or destroy all copies of the works possessed in a physical medium and discontinue all use of and all access to other copies of Project Gutenberg trademark symbol works. You provide, in accordance with paragraph 1.f.3, a full refund of any money paid for a work or a replacement copy, if a defect in the electronic work is discovered and reported to you within 90 days of receipt of the work. You comply with all other terms of this agreement for free distribution of Project Gutenberg trademark symbol works. 1.e.9. If you wish to charge a fee or distribute a Project Gutenberg trademark symbol electronic work or group of works on different terms than are set forth in this agreement, you must obtain permission in writing from the Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation, the manager of the Project Gutenberg trademark symbol trademark. Contact the Foundation as set forth in Section 3 below. 1.f1.f.1. Project Gutenberg volunteers and employees expend considerable effort to identify, do copyright research on, transcribe and proofread works not protected by U.S. copyright law in creating the Project Gutenberg trademark symbol collection. Despite these efforts, Project Gutenberg trademark symbol electronic works, and the medium on which they may be stored, may contain defects such as, but not limited to, incomplete, inaccurate or corrupt data, transcription errors, a copyright or other intellectual property infringement, a defective or damaged disk or other medium, a computer virus, or computer codes that damage or cannot be read by your equipment. 1.f.2 Limited warranty. Disclaimer of damages, except for the right of replacement or refund described in paragraph 1.f.3. The Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation, the owner of the Project Gutenberg trademark symbol trademark, and any other party distributing a Project Gutenberg trademark symbol electronic work under this agreement, disclaim all liability to you for damages, costs and expenses, including legal fees. You agree that you have no remedies for negligence, strict liability, breach of warranty or breach of contract except those provided in paragraph 1.f.3. You agree that the Foundation, the trademark owner, and any distributor under this agreement will not be liable to you for actual, direct, indirect, consequential, punitive or incidental damages even if you give notice of the possibility of such damage. 1.f.3 Limited right of replacement or refund. If you discover a defect in this electronic work within 90 days of receiving it, you can receive a refund of the money, if any, you paid for it by sending a written explanation to the person you received the work from. If you received the work on a physical medium, you must return the medium with your written explanation. The person or entity that provided you with the defective work may elect to provide a replacement copy in lieu of a refund. If you received the work electronically, the person or entity providing it to you may choose to give you a second opportunity to receive the work electronically in lieu of a refund. If the second copy is also defective, you may demand a refund in writing without further opportunities to fix the problem. 1.f.4 Except for the limited right of replacement or refund set forth in paragraph 1.f.3, this work is provided to you as is, with no other warranties of any kind, express or implied, including but not limited to warranties of merchantability or fitness for any purpose. 1.f.5 Some states do not allow disclaimers of certain implied warranties or the exclusion or limitation of certain types of damages. If any disclaimer or limitation set forth in this agreement violates the law of the state applicable to this agreement, the agreement shall be interpreted to make the maximum disclaimer or limitation permitted by the applicable state law. The invalidity or unenforceability of any provision of this agreement shall not void the remaining provisions. 1.f.6 Indemnity. You agree to indemnify and hold the Foundation, the trademark owner, any agent or employee of the Foundation, anyone providing copies of Project Gutenberg trademark symbol electronic works in accordance with this agreement, and any volunteers associated with the production, promotion and distribution of Project Gutenberg trademark symbol electronic works, harmless from all liability, costs and expenses, including legal fees, that arise directly or indirectly from any of the following which you do or cause to occur. A. Distribution of this or any Project Gutenberg trademark symbol work. B. Alteration, modification, or additions or deletions to any Project Gutenberg trademark symbol work, and C. Any defect you cause. Section 2. Information about the mission of Project Gutenberg trademark symbol. Project Gutenberg trademark symbol is synonymous with the free distribution of electronic works in formats readable by the widest variety of computers, including obsolete, old, middle-aged and new computers. It exists because of the efforts of hundreds of volunteers and donations from people in all walks of life. Volunteers and financial support to provide volunteers with the assistance they need are critical to reaching Project Gutenberg trademark symbol's goals and ensuring that the Project Gutenberg trademark symbol collection will remain freely available for generations to come. In 2001, the Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation was created to provide a secure and permanent future for Project Gutenberg trademark symbol and future generations. To learn more about the Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation and how your efforts and donations can help, see sections 3 and 4 and the Foundation information page at www.gutenberg.org. Section 3. Information about the Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation. The Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation is a non-profit 501(c)(3) educational corporation organized under the laws of the state of Mississippi and granted tax-exempt status by the Internal Revenue Service. The Foundation's IN or Federal Tax Identification Number is 64-6221541. Contributions to the Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation are tax-deductible to the full extent permitted by U.S. federal laws and your state's laws. The Foundation's business office is located at 809 North 1500 West, Salt Lake City, UT 84116, 801-596-1887. Email contact links and up-to-date contact information can be found at the Foundation's website and official page at www.gutenberg.org/contact section 4. Information about donations to the Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation. Project Gutenberg trademark symbol depends upon and cannot survive without widespread public support and donations to carry out its mission of increasing the number of public domain and licensed works that can be freely distributed in machine-readable form accessible by the widest array of equipment, including outdated equipment. Many small donations, $1 to $5,000, are particularly important to maintaining tax-exempt status with the IRS. The Foundation is committed to complying with the laws regulating charities and charitable donations in all 50 states of the United States. Compliance requirements are not uniform and it takes a considerable effort, much paperwork and many fees to meet and keep up with these requirements. We do not solicit donations in locations where we have not received written confirmation of compliance. To send donations or determine the status of compliance for any particular state, visit www.gutenberg.org/donate. While we cannot and do not solicit contributions from states where we have not met the solicitation requirements, we know of no prohibition against accepting unsolicited donations from donors in such states who approach us with offers to donate. International donations are gratefully accepted, but we cannot make any statements concerning tax treatment of donations received from outside the United States. U.S. laws alone swamp our small staff. Please check the Project Gutenberg web pages for current donation methods and addresses. Donations are accepted in a number of other ways, including checks, online payments and credit card donations. To donate, please visit www.gutenberg.org/donate. Section 5. General information about Project Gutenberg trademark symbol Electronic Works. Professor Michael S. Hart was the originator of the Project Gutenberg trademark symbol concept of a library of electronic works that could be freely shared with anyone. For 40 years, he produced and distributed Project Gutenberg trademark symbol ebooks with only a loose network of volunteer support. Project Gutenberg trademark symbol ebooks are often created from several printed editions, all of which are confirmed as not protected by copyright in the US unless a copyright notice is included. Thus, we do not necessarily keep ebooks in compliance with any particular paper edition. Most people start at our website, which has the main PG search facility, www.gutenberg.org. This website includes information about Project Gutenberg trademark symbol, including how to make donations to the Project Gutenberg Literary Archive Foundation, how to help produce our new ebooks, and how to subscribe to our email newsletter to hear about new ebooks. Punchinello Volume 2. Number 28. Published by the Punchinello Publishing Company, 83 Nassau Street, New York. The full Project Gutenberg license,